due to all what is going on around them. Still, they are children, but they can see a lot, for example, of violence taking place in the streets, what they watch on TV, for example. Every now and then we see people being tortured in the streets. I think all of this can affect our children, especially that some of the people, they also take them down to the streets, besides the children of the streets as well, during demonstrations. So today we have with us Dr. Raouf Elhami, right?
Yes.
And I think he's the best person to tell us more about this. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. So could you give us a general introduction about anxiety in children in general?
Absolutely. First, let us define who is a child. A child in medicine is anyone between 2 and 12 years old. Second, if we talk about depression and anxiety in this age segment, we will find that below the age of 10, depression is rather rare. But if it happens more in boys than in girls. After the age of 10, it happens more in girls than in boys. Anxiety is far more common, and it happens in almost 10% of all children. The reasons for both ailments could be a variety of things. It could be a traumatic experience, such as sexual abuse of a boy or a girl, or the death of one of their parents, especially if the child was very much attached to this parent. And the third possibility is divorce, especially if the child was attached to both parents, more or less.
But these are the normal situations. I want this time, because time is running, I want to concentrate on the idea, because nowadays we are ourselves depressed, because whenever you open the TV, for example,
yes,
Rahma is always in the streets covering the reports and all what is going on of the clashes. You know, you just watch, for example, a young man being killed, being tortured, removing nails, moving into stores and killing people. You know, all of this, when you watch this, of course, what about your feelings? What about the child? When the child watches something like this, how is he going to feel like?
Excellent. I spoke about 3 reasons. That was exactly my 4th reason: violence. Violence could be inflicted on the child himself by his parents or by the teachers or by school. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about violence at large, violence that is prevailing now in the society. This has a very detrimental effect on the mental health of children. Let me give you an example of what you rightly pointed out. The endless tear bombs that happened, as I remember, maybe 6 months ago in our area in Al-Ittihadiyya, and this is a live experience because my son's family were trapped at my place, having a girl who was 9 years old and a boy who was 6 years old. We couldn't let them escape in this cloud of smoke all the time. I counted on that night almost between 20 to 30,000 tear gas bombs. I made a calculation of 5 minutes. I calculated by the whole night. It came to this average between 20 to 30,000. When we hurled them to the car to leave the area almost altogether, my grandson, until not the present day, but for several weeks, he used to panic every time he heard a blast. It could be fireworks. It could be the exhaust pipe of a car.
So how can we deal with this situation?
I'm going to say that. Now, this is just one example. Another example, if a car with a family is going somewhere and then they were forced by arms to go down, the mother starts screaming and they are all left on the highway crying and screaming. This is a traumatic experience. There are so many other things like that.
A school bus on the way also being stopped. This is what happened.
Absolutely. Those children, let's say what they are likely to suffer from. They are likely to suffer from different symptoms, be it different pains all over the body, severe headache, bouts of crying, nightmares where they get up crying or screaming even at night. They might become aggressive. They even become having some kind of phobias against heights or pets or whatever. Any loud noise would create an anxiety and uneasiness for them. Luckily, 90% of those children with time will improve and they will get back to normal life. But we cannot predict what will happen in the future when they are grown-ups. At this stage, we cannot predict the effect because...
We can just try and help their stage.
Absolutely. The parents must be having a very assuring attitude towards their children. Sometimes this helps, sometimes this is not enough. Let's talk about the 10% who will never be able to cope with time with those effects. Those will need professional help, absolute professional help, by a pediatric psychoanalyst. The 90% luckily will improve and revert to normal in a short period of time, which might take days or weeks or even months. So that's the situation in general about those kids.
Politicizing children at such an early age is actually a positive thing, or can it have a burden upon them? We see sometimes as we're going down children chanting and, you know, some of the various slogans.
Look, this channel of politicizing children at this age, we cannot actually condemn it as being wrong 100% because
it's haphazard, that's the thing. It's not
I see
from
them
school,
around Al-Ittihadiyya celebrating with their families. Whole families come and celebrate, raising the flag of Egypt. This is something nice. Chanting the nice.
We were discussing, both
Yes.
of us, this issue actually today before the air, and I was against the idea that the so-called brotherhood, they like to take the children and they put just writing slogans on their clothes as they are a project of a martyr or something.
This is
He's a
severely
kid,
detrimental.
and he's going over there. They tell them, you have to go to die for the sake of whatever they are telling him.
They are creating monsters out of those pure, miserable children. They are creating time bombs for the future by starting to make them hostile at that early stage to another segment of the society. Differences cannot be solved by this
But then
way
it's
of
the
life.
society's responsibility for these children as well.
Absolutely.
What can the society do as a whole? I'm not talking about families. I'm talking on the macro level.
Actually, we have to assimilate them, but this takes time. We cannot hope for a change between 1 month and the next to change those children who were actually made projects of martyrs into active members of the society, as small as they are. And the smaller they are, the more dangerous, because they don't think. They don't have the ability to analyze. They are just subject to obey their
And this is
elders.
the system they are following.
Yes. So those must be very well taken care of. And this is the government's responsibility in the first place. They were abandoned by their parents, neglected by their parents, made, as I say, time bombs and projects of sabotage, which I cannot understand, unfortunately. They should have been living the best period of their lives, enjoying what every other normal child enjoys.
I don't know, but actually, our director of photography, he said something very interesting. I liked it very much, and I noticed that it was applied, for example, in Tahrir Square. I don't know whether I'm right
It's
or
a
wrong.
plot.
The idea, no, that I can see children. He says when he takes his daughter, he never gives her a picture of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi or whoever. He gives her the Egyptian flag because he's not giving her his own opinion. He is telling her that her country, her homeland is Egypt, just teaching her the dignity and the feeling of the homeland. And I saw this, most of the children, I think you saw it as well, that most of the children, they are just having the flag here, and they are carrying the Egyptian flag, and they are singing for Egypt.
Are you talking about the Muslim Brotherhood?
No, I'm
or
talking
the-
of Tahrir
Oh,
Square.
yes.
Shouldn't
In
parents
Tahrir
also,
Square-
parents of children at Tahrir Square also have the responsibility to tell their
Those
children
children-
that those against, those pro-Morsi are...
My friend Nashwa, are really celebrating a very healthy part of their youth.
This is what I want to see.
Implanting patriotism inside them as early as possible. That's a good thing. But the other way around is a totally different picture.
But also, I'm stating that the Tahrir Square parents or Tahrir parents also have a responsibility to tell these children that they shouldn't be against any other faction of society. So that once they're in the school building, no fights, no small fights occur.
Well, you are actually very idealistic
She
about
is
that.
scared that maybe
I'm
in the
worried
class,
about it. Yeah, bullying.
to find
Because
someone.
those children and their parents actually just dictate to them that we are behind the Egyptian flag and we are behind El Sisi or the government or
And chanting
whatever.
the national anthem. I think this
But
is
they
something.
don't start actually cursing the
They
Muslim
shouldn't.
Brotherhood. They shouldn't.
Who knows if they do?
Okay.
They shouldn't.
They shouldn't, because this is part of a wider culture of intimacy between children of different opinions in the same class. This is what we are hoping for to achieve. But this takes time. This takes time. And this is not the only example. There are so many differences between children that we need them to actually integrate them together so that we have a healthy children with different orientations. التعددية or the multiplicity of any society is a healthy sign. We cannot say those are the yellows, those are the blacks, those are the whites. No. All mix together and make a bigger society of multiple
To help them, to
backgrounds.
just teaching them to live with the difference. I
Yes,
think that's
and here comes a very important role of the parents. The parents must teach their children actually to be tolerable, not vengeful. This is important, and to have a continuous dialogue with them all the time, especially the age from 7 to 12, because these children reason, and they are still under the influence of their parents. After that age, they will be more likely to be under the influence of their peers and boys and girls in the school.
And I think even at the age of 2 still it is good, just healthy, just to teach your child or the kid to choose and to allow him to give a freedom of expression and to listen to him or to his...
At the age of...
2, I believe, since he's a kid. Since,
Absolutely.
Yes, this is...
Absolutely. As I said before, we must treat our children as friends and not subordinates. Yeah. We must have a continuous dialogue with them.
This
we
is the
must
key word
open
now.
channels with them for dialogue so that when they grow up, they can confide in us as their parents and tell us about their problems other than going to the outside and they might get a bad advice. So keeping an open channel with them is a must.
Right. Dr. Raouf Ilhami, thank you very much for joining us.
You are most welcome. Thank you very, very much.
And with this, we come to the end of our breakfast show for today. Thank you all for joining us. Rahma?
A
want to add
pleasure as
anything?
always, Nashwa. That's all I can add.
Rahma's getting ready to move on to Tahrir Square. Good luck to
We'll
you.
be having live
And
coverage, yes.
I think all of the Egyptians will be today in the streets upon, of course, Yes.
But I'm not going as a protester
No.
or supporter.
She's
I'm
going as a
going to
reporter.
cover.
I'm going as a supporter.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. All of
Do
the Egyptians
الاتحادية.
will be over there, all around Egypt today,
Yeah.
just to give the support or the call of General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi
Yes.
today. So thank you all for joining us. Stay tuned for more coming up on Nile TV International.